In a small lively town called Olatunji lived a woman named Ireti. She is known for her delicious meal. Her restaurant at the edge of the town market attracted people from everywhere who loved her dishes. Ireti's food was famous for its great flavor, soft texture, and perfect spices. From spicy stews to a tasty soup to flavored rice, people kept coming back for more. However, the town people did not know Ireti's cooking success had a secret. She used a special ingredient that no one knew about: water from the town's mortuary. This water, used to clean bodies before burial, was believed by Ireti to make her food uniquely delicious. Under the cover of night, when the market was empty, Ireti would sneak out of her home and make her way to the mortuary on the outskirts of town. There she will gather the water used for washing the cups, storing it carefully in a jar. She was convinced this water held a mysterious power that made her dishes not only delicious but also addictive. As words of her remarkable food spread, so did her need of forbidden water. The more she used, the more her popularity flew, and soon she became the most sought-after food vendor in Olatunji. Her success led to a flourishing restaurant, making her household name and a symbol of culinary excellence. However, her rise to fame did not go unnoticed. Some of the older women in town, former masters of their own kitchen, began to suspect something was missing. They could not fathom how her food could be so exceptional good. Whispers of magic or forbidden practice circulated among them. One evening, as Ireti was closing her restaurant, an elderly woman named Mama Shade approached her. Mama Shade, once a celebrated cook, had seen her own business declined since Ireti's rise. This old woman had heard the rumors and noticed uniqueness about Ireti, how she avoided discussing her method, never gathered water from the traditional source, and worked primarily in secrecy. Ireti, Mama Shade began, her tone cautious yet investigating. Your food has become the talk of town. There are whispers, child, about how you prepare such extraordinary dish. Can you share your secret? Ireti responds with a practiced smile, her face a mark of politeness. Ah, Mama Shade, it is simply a matter of experience and seasoning. Nothing more, she said, though her eyes were filled with unease. Mama Shade, sensing the deception, left the conversation feeling unsettled but determined. She resolved to uncover the truth behind Ireti's success, driven by a sense of justice and concern for her fellow town people. As Ireti's fame continued to grow, so did the unease in the town of Olatunji. Her restaurant had become a gathering place for people far and wide, yet those closest to her began to notice subtle but troubling change in the woman they once knew. The jovial, smiling Ireti was slowly becoming more distant and secretive. She spent long hours in her kitchen alone, rarely allowing anyone to see how she prepared her meal. Mama Shade, who had been quietly watching from the shadow, grew more convinced that Ireti's success was not entirely natural. The elder woman often found herself lingering around Ireti's restaurant late at night, hoping to catch a glimpse of secrets she suspected Ireti was hiding. One evening, as the moon hung low in the sky, Mama Shade followed Ireti as she left her restaurant carefully, staying out of sight. To Mama Shade's shock, Ireti did not head towards the usual well or stream for water. Instead, she walked through the dark streets towards the mortuary. The old woman's heart raced as she watched from a distance, her instincts confirming her worst fears. She hid behind a tree as Ireti disappeared in the mortuary's ground. Inside, Ireti moved swiftly. She knew exactly where the mortuary workers stored the water used to wash the bodies. She had formed a relationship with one of the attendants, bribing him with money in exchange for access to the water. Tonight, as usual, she filled her jar with the dark tinted water, believing in its supernatural prosperity. The liquid shimmering faintly in the moonlight, and Ireti smiled, convinced it was the key to her continued success. As she filled the large jar, Ireti felt a strange chill in the air. She glanced over her shoulder, sensing that something was not right. but the mortuary ground was silent, and there was no sign of anyone. Shaking off the feeling, she gathered her jar and quietly slipped away into the night. Unbest known to Ireti, Mama Shade had witnessed everything. Her heart pounded with both fear and disgust. She had never imagined that Ireti's secret would be this dark, this twisted. The elder knew that using water from the dead body was not only forbidden, but it also carried a dangerous curse. The spirits of the dead were restless, and such an act would surely anger the gods. Mama Shade returned home, her mind racing. She knew she had to expose Ireti, but she also feared the consequences. How would the town people react? And most importantly, what dark spirit had Ireti unleashed through her forbidden practice? The next morning, as the market buzzed with activity and people gathered at Ireti restaurants for a meal, Mashade visited the town high priest, Baba Ifayemi. Baba Ifayemi was known for his wisdom and deep connection to the spiritual world, and Mama Shade trusted that he would know what to do. When she arrived at his shrine, he found the old priest seated on a mat, surrounded by candles and sacred symbols. He welcomed her with a solemn nod, sensing the urgency in her visit. Mama Shade, what troubles you? Baba Ifayemi asked, his voice gentle but firm. The old woman took a deep breath, recounting the events of the previous night. She told him everything about Ireti's strange rise to fame, the suspicions that had been growing, and finally, the horrifying discovery that Ireti had been using water from the mortuary to prepare her meals. Baba Ifayemi listened quietly, his expression darkened as the story unfolded. When Mama Shade finished, he stood and walked to the shrine, where he had lighted a bundle of incense. He muttered a prayer under his breath before turning back to Mama Shade. This is a grave matter, he said, his voice filled with a quiet intensity. Using water from the dead is a dangerous and forbidden practice. It defiles the spirit and brings a terrible curse upon the one who does it. Ireti may believe she had found power in this practice, but the spirits will not remain silent for long. She is playing with the forces that cannot be controlled. Mama Shade nodded, fear creeping into her heart. What must we do, Baba Ifayemi? The town is in danger, and I fear that the curse will soon fall upon us all. Baba Ifayemi thought for a moment before speaking. We must confront Ireti and cleanse her from the dark practice before it's too late. But we must also act carefully. The people are drawn to our food, and they may not believe us. If the curse had already taken root, it will be difficult to remove. The priest handed Mama Shade a small pouch filled with protective herbs. Take this with you. It will protect you from the spirit. Tonight we will confront her together. That night, at Olatunji town settled into its usual calm. An uneasy feeling hung in the air. That night was cool, but unnatural chill sensed to cling to the village. Mama Shade and Baba Ifayemi, carrying a protective herb and guided by the moonlight, made their way to Ireti's restaurant. Inside, Ireti was busy preparing the next day meal. She hummed silently while stirring her pot, unaware of the growing darkness around her. The jar of water from the mortuary, which she had come on rely on, stood in corner of the kitchen. Despite their fainting shimmer, Ireti was convinced that this water was the secret of her success and paid no mind to the unsettled shadow flocking in the room. As she cooked, she began to notice odd things. At first, it was a whisper of breeze where no wind was open or no slight movement in the shadow. She paused, her hand over the pot, but listened. The kitchen was quiet, but something fell off, as though she was being watched. Ignoring the feeling, Ireti continued her work, but the strange occurrence grew more intense. The whisper became more louder. Voices echoed from nowhere. Shadows in the kitchen grew louder and twisted as if alive. Ireti's heart raced and she felt a deep unease. Suddenly, a pot clanged to the wall, splitting its contents. Ireti jumped back, her eyes wide with fear. As she stared at the mess, she felt a pang of regret for the first time. Had she gone too far? The success and wealth she had gained had come so quickly, but at what cost? Just then, There was a loud knock at her door. Startled, Ireti turned around, her heart pounding. The voices in her room quiet and the shadow receded. But her fear remained. She hesitated before opening the door, knowing that whosoever was on the other side might bring more than just a visitor. When she opened the door, she saw Mama Shade and Baba Ifayemi standing there. The old priest's face was serious and Mama Shade looked determined. Ireti, Baba Ifayemi said with authority, "We know what you have been doing." Ireti's breath caught in her own throat. She thought about lying, but the way of the spirits and the atmosphere in her kitchen made her realize that there was no point in pretending anymore. "I don't know what you are talking about," she said weakly. Mama Shade stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We followed you last night. We saw you at the mortuary, gathering the water. That's how your food has become so popular, isn't it?" Ireti's face went pale. She felt trapped. She had thought her secret was safe. But now, facing these two elders, she understood the dark price of her success. Baba Ifayemi's voice was low and grave. "Using water from the dead is a serious violation. You have angered the spirits and they are restless. The more you use the water, the stronger their curse became. If you don't stop, their wrath will not only affect you but everyone who eats your food." Ireti's mind raced. Her whole life revolved around her success and her restaurant. Stopping now would mean losing everything she had worked for. But the fear hung at her. Look at the price she was paying. "No," Ireti whispered, shaking her head. "I can't stop now. The restaurant, my livelihood, it all depends on it." Mama Shade's voice softened. "Ireti, listen to me. You had already gone too far. The spirits would not be ignored. If you do not end this, they will come for you and for everyone who has eaten your food. You must make things right before it's too late." Tears filled Ireti's eyes as she realized the full extension of her actions. Her greed and desire for success had led her to a path that now threatened to destroy her. The whispers in her kitchen grew louder again, as if the spirits were waiting for her decision. Baba Ifayemi handed Ireti a small bundle of herbs. "Take this," he said. "Burn it in your kitchen and throughout your restaurant. It will help cleanse the space, but it won't completely stop the spirit. You must go to the rituals, return the jar of water, and make an offering to the spirits. Only there will they be at peace." Ireti's hands trembled as she took the herbs. She knew Baba Ifayemi was right, but part of her still clung to her success. Could she really give up? Ireti stood in her kitchen, holding the bundle of herbs Baba Ifayemi had given to her. Her heart was racing, and the air felt heavy with anger presence of the spirits. She felt their anger all around her, making her realize that she had gone too far. There was no denying it anymore. Her guilt and fear about losing her restaurant were overwhelming. The success that once made her proud now felt like a weight around her neck. The spirits were getting closer. She knew she had to act fast to stop this curse from spreading to everyone who had ate her food. With trembling hands, Ireti lighted the herbs, letting the smoke fill the room. The strong smell mixed with the aroma of her cooking, and for a moment, the spirit seemed quieter. She moved around the kitchen, burning the herbs in every corner, hoping to drive away the darkness. But as she did, the shadow in the room grew darker and twisted into strange shapes, faces that seemed to watch her from the wall. Ireti's fear grew as the spirit's anger became more intense. The herbs did not seem to help, and the voice in her head grew louder, demanding justice. Desperate, Ireti turned to the jar of the water from the mortuary, which had brought her success but also her downfall. As she touched one of the jars, she felt a painful cold energy. The water, once harmless, now seemed to hold spirits of the dead moving beneath the surface. Just then, Mama Shade and Baba Ifayemi arrived. Baba Ifayemi started chanting protective prayers, his voice strong above the noise of the spirit. Mama Shade knelt beside Ireti, holding her hand and speaking softly but firmly. "Ireti, it is not too late," she said. "You can still fix this. but you need to let go. The spirit will be calm until you return the water and make an offering. You have used their power for too long, and now you must show them you understand the cost. Tears streamed down Ireti's face as she saw the truth. Everything she had gained was built on a dark foundation. Her greed had blinded her, and now the spirits were determining their own doom. With Baba Ifayemi's help, Ireti gathered the jar of waters and with heavy heart set out to the mortuary. Each step felt heavy with guilt and fear, as if the spirits were watching her from every corner. At the mortuary, the air was still. Baba Ifayemi instructed Ireti to place the jar at the foot of the gate and kneel. He began to chant, asking the spirit to forgive her. Ireti, her voice trembling, spoke for the first time. I was wrong. I used the water of the dead for my wealth and fame, and I have angered the spirits. I am sorry, please forgive me. The wind began to blow, and the ground shook as if the spirits were reacting. The jars, glowing faintly into the moonlight, pulsing with energy as the spirits considered her apology. Baba Ifayemi continued his prayer. Spirits of the dead, hear us. This person had wronged you and is trying to make things right. She had returned what she had taken and offered her soul in apology. The wind grew louder, and then the jar's glow began to fade. The restless energy in the air started to disappear, and the shadow that followed Ireti faded. The spirit's voice grew quieter, but Baba Ifayemi knew the spirit would not leave without a price. The cost could not just be lifted, it had to be paid in full. You must make an offering, he told Ireti gently. The spirit will not be at peace until you give back everything you took. Ireti, feeling deep sorrow, asked, what must I do? Baba Ifayemi placed his hand on her shoulder. You must give up your restaurant, your wealth, and your fame. You must return everything to those you have wronged and live simply from now on. Only then will the spirits be satisfied. Tears ran down Ireti's face as she understood the full cost. Everything she had, her restaurant, her success, and her wealth, would be given up. The spirits had tainted everything she had achieved, and now she had no choice but to let it go. The morning after the ritual at the mortuary, Ireti woke up at unusual silence. The restless whisper of the spirits had disappeared, but the weight of Baba Ifayemi's word still weighed heavily on her. She had promised to give up everything gained through her greed and forbidden practice, but the thought of letting go of her restaurant, wealth, and reputation was terrifying. The restaurant that had once filled her with pride now felt like a dark reminder of her wrongdoings. Ireti knew she had to make things right, but every step toward doing so felt like skipping deeper into regrets and loss. That day, Ireti gathered her staff and loyal customers. She stood before them, her eyes tired and red from the sleepless nights. Her hand shook as she spoke to the people who had once praised her cooking. I have something to confess, she began, her voice barely audible. The crowd looked at her with curiosity, sensing something serious was happening. For many months I have deceived you, Ireti continued, her voice breaking with guilt. The food you had enjoyed was not made with pure intention. I used water taken from the dead body, water from the mortuary, to prepare your meals. It was wrong, and I allowed greed to lead me to something forbidden and unnatural. The crowd, full with shock, some people were horrified. Others could not believe that the woman who had brought them so much joy had committed such a terrible act. I knew this is hard to hear, Ireti said, her voice trembling. But I must be honest, the spirits are angry, and they will not rest until I have paid the price of my action. Baba Ifayemi and Mama Shade stood nearby, watching as Ireti revealed her truth. Baba Ifayemi had warned her that this moment would come, and now she was facing the consequences. There was no turning back. I will be closing my restaurant, Ireti continued, tears streaming down her face. Everything I have gained from this place, my wealth and my success, I will give back. I'm sorry for the pain I have caused, and I hope that by making this sacrifice, I could find some forgiveness. The crowd fell silent. Some looked at her with anger, others with pity. The once celebrated chef had fallen from the grace, and her reputation would never be the same. With a heavy heart, Ireti handed over the keys of her restaurant to Baba Ifayemi, making the end of her time as the town popular food vendor. Baba Ifayemi accepted the key solemnly, knowing that this was just the first step of Ireti's path of redemption. In the weeks that followed, Ireti sold off all her belongings, from the kitchen equipment to the decoration. The money was given to the people of Olatunji, many of whom had been affected by her action. While some refused the money, others accepted it, believing Ireti was trying to make amends. As time went on, Ireti lived a very simple life, working as a helper in the town markets, far from her very extravagant life she had once known. The spirits, having been appeased by her sacrifice, no longer haunt her, and the town returned to its peaceful rhythm. Yet, Ireti's fall from grace left a lasting mark. Her story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how greed could lead to a terrible consequences. Despite her efforts to make things right, Ireti could not escape her path. Whenever she walked through the town, people looked at her with fear, pity, or judgment. She had learned a harsh lesson about the cost of ambition. One evening, as the sun set over Olatunji, Ireti returned to the mortuary, this time not to gather water, but to make a final offering. She stood before the mortuary gate, carrying a simple meal she had prepared without the cost water. She placed the meal at the entrance, kneeling in silent prayer to the spirit who she had once wronged. I offer this in humility, she whispered, her voice soft but steady. I ask for forgiveness, not just for the spirits, but from those who I have wronged. May my actions from this day forward be guided by honesty, and may the darkness I unleash never return. As she rose to leave, a gentle breeze brushed her face. For the first time in months, Ireti felt a sense of peace, and understanding that she could not fully undo the harm she had caused. She had taken a step to face her guilt. The town of Olatunji eventually moved on from Ireti's scandal, but her story remained a legend. Mothers told their children about the woman who had risen to a fame through forbidden means, only to lose everything in the end. They spoke of how greed could lead even the most respected people down to the dark path, and how redemption was always possible. Ireti lived her days quietly, working with her hands in the soil, far from the kitchen that had once brought fame. She never sought recognition again, contented to live humbly and atone for her choice. The taste of her success had turned bitter, but in her sacrifice she found a different kind of peace. The spirit of Olatunde slept peacefully once more, and Ireti, though deepened by her path, finally understood that true meaning of humility and redemption, in the end, is the price of her greed was paid fully.